Okay, we're going to do a Q&A this week because I guess I've been off YouTube for a while, so I thought I'd put out like a Q&A box. Now, if I'm going to be fucking honest and fully transparent with you guys, a lot of the questions I've answered a million times before. So if you want me to answer juicier questions, you're just going to have to come with better questions next time. So let's get going. Also, I'm in my bedroom on the floor and there could be random shit in the background here, like jumpers and laundry. Like, I'm a real person, I live in a real house, okay? I don't have a fucking aesthetic filming room, and Evan's inside on a Zoom call at his desk, so I may be marrying the man. But if you think that I can record a YouTube video in front of him, like a sit down one, absolutely no way. I can vlog, but no, the rest absolutely not. So I'm gonna get ready, I'm gonna do my makeup. I'm not gonna talk about the makeup, I'm just gonna talk about the questions, because otherwise I can just go on and on and on too long, and it's truly one of my biggest curses that I'm always like, this will be a 10-minute video, and I don't shut up. So I get very annoyed at myself when I'm editing. But let's get going. Okay, well, I'll answer this one first, so I guess it makes sense. Why did you stop vlogging? So, I stopped vlogging because I didn't want to vlog anymore. It's really that simple. And it's not saying that I'll never vlog again. I'm just like taking it off the roster of what would it be called, like regular expected content, because I started getting so many messages from people being like, I miss your vlogs, I miss your vlogs, I miss your vlogs. And while I totally appreciate that, and I also completely empathize that as someone who, I'm a big vlog lover, I love watching people's vlogs, and not many people do vlogs anymore. But the reason they don't do vlogs, the reason why most people don't do vlogs anymore is there's just not the audience for it, in terms of making money for smaller creators anyway. I don't make any money off any of my YouTube videos. When I was doing vlogging weekly, right, I'll give you an example because I feel like YouTubers never talk about this. So I do a weekly vlog, say it would get like high end, I'd probably get maybe close to 10,000 views, average maybe 5, right? If I did 4 a month, I would maybe get like, I don't know how much money it was. I think it could have been like €200 or something like that. And obviously €200 is €200, but the thing is, to make a vlog, the cost per hour on that, it just wasn't making sense for me. And I have my podcast, which is like its whole other business. I think unfortunately what got at me is just like there was a big expectation of people being like, when's the vlog? Where's your vlog? And I was just like, oh my God, this is something I started for fun and now it's starting to feel like a job. And that might sound selfish, but like I do actually do these just for a bit of laugh. Like I do like putting up videos and I like having them and I like looking back on them. Like I love looking back on our holiday vlogs. Like they're so fun, especially my Italy one from last year. But I just don't have the mental nor the time capacity to be out 24/7 vlogging. Fair play to the people who can. I love watching your content. I will always watch it. Hold it down for us vloggers. But it just isn't realistic for me in my life right now. So I've got a few questions about like the wedding stuff, and I don't really talk about my wedding stuff, but I'll talk about it a bit. Why not? When I say like I'm not talking about my wedding, it's not me in a real like protective, like the wedding is the wedding, the big day. Like I'm just not like that as a person. It's just for me, it's like I always think that no matter what you put out in terms of like YouTube videos, like whatever you put out on Instagram, on YouTube, on any form of content, podcast, you're giving someone else the ability to shit on it, and I think that just comes with the territory. But I just don't want to, and it's not even that I literally do not read any hate about myself, haven't in fucking years, like I'd say 2.5 years, not even joking. I couldn't have any less interest in it. It's not for me. What they think of me ain't my business, as I say. But just the thoughts that I could be planning something that's meant to be so like literally just like full of love and like my closest friends and family and like a day where I want to be happy, I just don't want to like even be able to give people the ability to shit on it before it happens. I'll post about it after, and I'll probably do a YouTube video on like planning a wedding for someone who like doesn't really care about being a bride. But like I don't like putting it out there, because then people just love to tear into you over it, and it's just even the like the subconscious knowledge that someone could be tearing into it pisses me off. So I don't want to ever go into my wedding pissed off. But we are getting married this year, which is very exciting. We're doing a very small wedding. We're doing a small low-key wedding, which I'm really, really happy about. We spent ages trying to actually decide. I'm trying to find my feckin' thing. We spent ages trying to decide what kind of wedding we wanted to do. What did we want to go abroad? Did we want summer? Blah 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 blah. But just we knew we were going to buy a house this year, so I was like, what's the word, like justify spending a lot of money on a wedding. And also like I've just never been the kind of person, like obviously I'm really excited for my wedding. I'm not trying to be like pick me vibes, but like I've just never really been that person who's like been dying to be a bride my whole life. And like, you know, I know people who got engaged and like booked their wedding within like 4 months. I'm like, how did you know what you wanted? So we just decided to do something very small, which I'm really excited about, but it's going to be like an intimate affair, but it's not like a casual affair. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like I think a lot of times when you have a small wedding, people think like, oh, it's so I can just, you know, it's just very low key and like it's a whatever. I'm like, no, we're still all getting really dressed up. It's going to be very, in my mind, like chic and cozy, and I'm really excited for it. But it's not going to be a big production, if that makes sense. Someone asked, am I going to wear a traditional dress? So I mean, I guess it's traditional, as in like I am wearing a wedding dress and a wedding dress designer is making it for me, but I'm not wearing like anything that goes outwards. Does that make sense? I just wanted to feel like, a sexy bride. I feel like a lot of like bridal wear from anything I've looked at, like I didn't go to any fittings, I didn't go to any bridal shops. It's just, I couldn't be fucking arsed. I had to like not drag myself, but like going for my first fitting, I was like, okay. And by that point I knew what I wanted, so I was like kind of on a mission. My dress designer, I find that a lot of bridal wear is very like reliving your first Holy Communion. Like, I don't know. And like, that's not to hate on anyone who's into that. It's just not for me. Like, I don't really wear dresses on the reg anyway. I didn't want to wear a suit. Like, I obviously could have, but I just wasn't really into the idea of wearing a suit, to be honest. I did want to wear a dress. I do want to feel like glamorous and that kind of stuff, but yeah, so my dress is like, it's traditional, and like I'm not going to be like, it's not traditional, because then, see, this is what I mean. If I was like, my dress isn't traditional, and then when people saw it, they'd be like, she's not, her dress isn't traditional, and then she's wearing a traditional dress. Like, that's honestly what you should deal with. It is traditional in a sense, but it's not like a ball gown. I've got loads of questions about houses, buying a house, like what are your house plans, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I haven't said this anywhere yet, but like Evan and I, we have gone sale agreed in a house. Now, if you don't understand that, like, because I'll tell people that, and then I totally get it. If you're not in the arena of buying a house, that can sound like, oh my god, you got the house. It doesn't mean you have the house. 30% of house sales fall through, I think. Now, I don't think ours is going to fall through. I think it's all going really well. We got really lucky, I guess. I'm going to do a whole video on it once we actually have the keys to the fucking house, because I don't want to like blow my beans too soon, as they say. But we were very lucky. We went sale agreed within 2 weeks of getting mortgage approval. I don't know, it seems to be, everyone told us, and this is why I want to do a video on it, because everyone's scared the shit out of us about buying a house, especially in this market. And this isn't to say that the market is good. Obviously the market is horseshit, like it just is what it is. But I want to do a video that puts a little bit more positivity in the house buying market, because there's so much out there that is true, right? But you can still get lucky, and there are still good, sorry, Evan came in there. This is like, it feels like lockdown whenever he's home and he's not working. I'm like, can you go into your studio? So bad of me. But yeah, so yeah, we've gone sale agreed in a house. I will reveal all very soon once the actual sale has gone through. I'm really excited, very excited about the entire thing, to be honest. It's obviously a scary process, because you are like, oh my god, there's my mortgage for the next 30 years, like fuck my life. But we ticked off everything on our list, which I was really happy about. And yeah, so all will be real soon. I think I want to do a whole video on it, especially because it's like we're both self-employed, so I feel like that we're in kind of like a unique position, and it needs loads of work. So I am going to do like stuff on, I don't know about YouTube, but maybe more Instagram and TikTok, like renovation stuff, because I think that's so fun and I love watching that. Now we'll see how it goes when I'm actually doing the work, or we're getting the work done. Like, I'll see how it actually, what that's like to film, but I plan to do that kind of stuff. When you worked 9 to 5, did you ever struggle money wise? Hell yeah. So I mean, I don't think I was ever really like struggling in a sense of like I don't know, to put food on the table or any of that kind of stuff, because I was lucky that I could live at home. But that in and of itself was kind of a struggle, because, you know, I only moved out. I mean, I lived on my own obviously in New York and stuff like that, but like in Dublin I only moved out when I moved in with Evan, and that was because I could not afford it. And I think that a lot of people are in that position. A lot of couples I know are in that position where you are, it's like you only have the ability, you're kind of rushed into like moving in with each other. Now, I didn't feel rushed. Evan and I were kind of ready to move in with each other at that point. But if I was younger, I think that would have been, it would have felt like a little bit more daunting. And it is like annoying because, like, as I said, like we have this house, hopefully, fingers crossed, and this will be my first place that like is like equally mine as it is Evan's, and also it'll be my first place that's like I chose to live in. Everywhere else that I've ever lived, like New York, all these other places, it was always like out of necessity, like, okay, I can afford the rent, or like whatever, like the way the house even was like decorated, I wasn't able to really have a say in, because like it wasn't on the lease, wasn't in my name, and you know, all of those little things. So but also, like, I made really, my pay in my first job was so shit, and not even in a way of like looking back from like what I'm making now, in general, like that I was paid fucking nothing for the amount of work that was expected. So that was very hard. Now obviously you pay less tax and stuff like that, but like I was not coming home with a lot of money per month, but I made it work. But again, I was just really lucky that I could live with my parents, and if I wasn't from Dublin and I had to move out, like, I don't know what I would do. And that was even at a period of time when it was probably cheaper to get an apartment, you know. Well, definitely was cheaper to get an apartment back in like 2016 to 2018, but I still couldn't afford it. Like it still would have been a fucking shit ton of my money, and I didn't really have any friends who were like moving out as well, so it's not like I could have, like, I wanted to live with friends, I didn't want to live with like random people, because I did that in New York and I just like didn't really like it. It just wasn't really for me. So I never had the opportunity or the ability really to move out. And I always felt really insecure about that. Like when people would ask me where you live, and I'd be like, I have to live with my parents. Now I wouldn't give a fuck. And now I think a lot of people are doing that, so it has become more normalized, but it's really shit, because like getting laid, like just wanting to live your own life, like it's annoying. Like you want to have your own space at that age and at that period of your life. So that is a struggle, but yeah, I mean, I think everyone, one of the many good things about getting older is you'll have more money too. Like when you get into your 30s, you'll have been working in a professional capacity for a couple of years, no matter what industry you're in. So hopefully you'll be making a bit more money. And if you don't have kids yet, you can have a little bit more expendable money until you pop a few out, you know? On that theme, have you ever experienced insecurity or lacking confidence professionally, and how to deal with it? Yeah, all the time, and still in my own industry now, I get that constantly. Like, I don't know if that ever leaves, and I think some people don't have it. Like, I don't know if I consider myself a very insecure person, but when I have an insecurity, I find it very hard to shake it. And that's just me being fucking real with you guys. Like, I obviously have insecurities, and in my industry everyone's success is so visible, like whether it be quantifiable by numbers of followers, or whether it be quantifiable by like positions in charts, or even just the sense of like the Irish media, like they just don't really represent a lot of like more, and it sounds very annoying, I'm not trying to like call myself this, but more alternative perspectives. Like it's very much like, you are blonde, you are good looking, you are glamorous, or like you work for RTE, and there's nothing wrong with those things. Like, get your bag. If that is the route you want to go down, you'll be successful at it, and you'll probably get a lot of mainstream recognition. But it's just, for me, it was never something that I really wanted to pursue, or kind of like compromise in my own taste or my own content as well, in order just to get more recognition. So, but it does kind of like get you, because like sometimes you feel like you're not talking to a wall, because I know I've got like, say, like loads of listeners to the podcast, and it did really well. Like that season I did like really, really, really well, like better than I really thought it would, which I was so proud of, especially because I produced it all. But like those things don't really get acknowledged in Ireland, like that you're like a producer, or that you're writing all these like scripts and like building the sets. Like it's annoying, and it's still something I will do because it's what I like to do, and I see it as like upskilling. But it is like infuriating when you're just like, you don't get any recognition, and recognition is just that, obviously. Like recognition from your peers is so nice, and recognition from the media, like it does make you feel good, like because we don't have, like in my industry, like we don't have bosses. Like I'm my own boss. I don't have co-workers, like I don't have anyone else. So when you get recognition from your peers or from like people within your industry, that's really all you can get. Like you don't get bonuses, you don't get your boss coming in and being like, you're employee of the month, you know, that way. So it can feel a little bit like isolating at times, making the kind of content that I do, being the kind of person I am, which isn't even that unusual. Like I do want to stress that I'm not trying to say like I'm so fucking different, like that's not what I'm saying. So after that rant, my point is that like that's, I can feel insecure about that sometimes, because I'm like, why aren't I getting this, and why am I not getting that? And I just always have to remind myself that like you never got it, so why yearn for it? It's not like something you lost. And just stay in your own lane and keep going with it. I think professional insecurity is very normal, because we're all told now, and we all believe to an extent, that like our worth is defined by like our productivity or our output, and that output usually typically has to be commodified or profitable or anything like that. So it can be, that's just something I try and keep like in my mind, that my worth isn't in just my work, and my worth is not just in things like, you know, how much money I make, or whether I'm up on the charts, or whether I'm like a known influencer in Ireland. And these things I understand, like I understand they sound very not even just privileged, just like, oh, what are you on about, like who cares? But I'm just, that's my job, so it's the only way I can relate to this. But even in like when I worked in corporate jobs, I had it all the time too. Like, you know, you would be thinking, I would be thinking anyway at that time, like I was like, say like 28, 27, 28, and I would think like, oh my god, like this person's on, I think this person's on like X amount of money, and you know, it would take me like 4 years of like, you know, my pay upgrades to reach that, and like when am I going to be at this age? And like, do you know what, I worried so much of it for so long, and then ended up changing career completely, that it did show me that like at the end of the day, your life is just going to go where it's going to go, and so is your career. Your career is just going to, I kind of let my career just kind of go, and like although I do have goals and things like that, I also just like let it go where it is. Because, you know, obviously when I worked corporate, I thought I was going to do that for my whole life. Then I had it gals, and I thought that that was going to be it, and then that all blew up in my face overnight. So at this point in my career, and at this point in like where I am in terms of like work, I just kind of, I'm like, right, not, I don't want to sound woo-woo, like the universe, because I don't think it's the universe, but I just think you have to be able to take things as they come, especially in my industry. You just have to be able to be adaptable and all those kinds of things. And you know, not the only person who's going to fire you is you if you give up. So you just have to keep on trucking. Okay, I got this question, and the only reason I'm answering it, I answer this all the time, and I try and tell people, but once again, do you have any advice on securing a job in New York? Guys, I lived in New York 10 years ago. Okay, let's put it into perspective. When I lived in New York, the world was still in the recession. When I lived in New York, Ultraviolence wasn't even out. Art Pop by Lady Gaga was not out. These are my cultural reference points, okay? When I was, what else happened? Let's see, 2013 was the year that I moved. What happened in 2013? When I lived in New York, Edward Snowden did the WikiLeaks leaks, okay? He was still living in America. When I lived in New York, Jennifer Lawrence had just come on the scene. Like, I could go on and on. It was so long ago. If, like, when I would go back and visit New York, like, my favorite coffee shop would be gone. Like, New York changes, like, by the year. by the block, if not by every 6 months. Like, you'll go back in 6 months and everyone's like, no one goes there anymore. Like, it is such a fast city. So asking an old bitch like myself any advice will only set you back, honestly. My advice for anyone moving abroad is just do your fucking research, know what you want to do over there, and go for it. Like, I can't give you information on how to get a job in New York. I wouldn't know how to get a job in New York now. I don't even know if I know how to get a job in Dublin now. Like, the landscape has changed so much. Like, Instagram was only really just starting to be used in Ireland when I moved to New York. Like, it was prehistoric era. Like, Obama was the president. Not a question, but I need a Sinead O'Connor hot take. I mean, there's no hot take to give. What a fucking devastating loss. What a devastating end to an already tragic and painful life. Like, she accomplished so much, so I don't ever want to take that away by calling her life like tragic and painful. She obviously, but she was in so much pain, and the one thing I will say about her death is that I'm so glad she started to get some recognition while she was still alive. That documentary, if you haven't watched it, was really, really good, called Nothing Compares. It came out last year. That really, like, it painted her in such a great light, and I feel like she was finally people were starting to be like, oh, she's a fucking genius. She knew exactly what she was talking about. Like, her, like, tearing up that picture of the Pope, like, she was treated so unfairly. And I feel that her book was obviously really well received. I haven't read her book. It's on my to read list. It has been for a long time. I'm never really drawn to memoirs. The odd time I can be, but I don't mind them. I actually like them when they're narrated on Audible. So I don't know if she did that. I am so glad that for once it was someone who I felt wasn't only praised after they left, which happens so often, especially with people who have like mental illnesses and struggles and trauma. I really just didn't think she would die so young, you know? I don't know. I'm so devastated for her kids, especially her youngest kid, because I was reading up to the day and his dad died last year. So he's only like 15, I think. Obviously his brother would have died like, what, was it 18 months ago? Then his dad, then his mom. Like, fuck, that is heavy. I just hope he's okay. I think he's in the custody anyway of his dad's new wife. I think he was living with them regardless. But I mean, still, to not have your mother or your father still alive is so traumatizing, never mind being like a fucking teenager. Top 5 books of all time. So you know what, I made a list of my all-time favorites on my Goodreads account the other day. So let me have a look. So I have a few here. I would say Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I would also say Freedom by Jonathan Franzen. I always say that book, but it is truly incredible. Again, problematic fave of mine, but fave nonetheless, and we're talking memoirs, would be The Long Hard Road Out of Hell by Marilyn Manson. My Dark Vanessa. I have a review of that book up here somewhere. That's an incredible book, and also to read alongside Lolita, because they feed into each other. Amazing. The Secret History as well, definitely. That's going in my all-time favorites. It's such an incredible book. I love it so much, and it's now become a comfort read of mine, or comfort experience or whatever of mine to go on. It's all narrated. The whole audiobook is on YouTube, narrated by Donna Tartt, and I turn that on sometimes just to like go asleep to. I fucking love it. Do you think people still see you as the other half of It Gals, or do you feel that you have shed that part of your past? I actually think that, do you know what happened to me? I had a meeting with Spotify a while ago, and I was talking to the rep or whatever, and she was like, I was just talking to her, blah blah blah, and I was like, oh, so you mean, do you know me from my old podcast? Because I always just presume people do. This was about a year ago as well, so I think I probably maybe wasn't as confident in Red Room as I am now. And she was like, no. And I was like, oh really? And I told her about it, and she was like, no, I've never heard of it. Which was, I loved that, because I was like, oh my god, not only did you only release, like, or not only did you only contact me because of this podcast and this podcast alone, but it kind of showed like a new generation of people who like have never heard of It Gals, never knew what it was. And it doesn't mean that I'm not like proud of like It Gals and like the work I did there, but like it is nice to be seen as a separate entity, because for so long I feel like I told myself and was told that I was like the lesser of two halves, or that I was the less entertaining one, and I have to say, like, that reading that book, My Hot Friend, did trigger me a lot in some ways. I know I laughed about it last week, but there were some actually genuinely triggering moments in there that I was like which, you know, maybe I should bring up to my therapist. But I believed that for so long because of what I was being told externally and telling myself. And that was kind of a nice moment for me to be like, oh, okay, someone knows you from literally just Red Room, and you know, it's like the leading podcast platform in the world, and they could give a fuck about it, girl. So that was nice for me. And in general, I think now I have kind of shed that part of my past. Like, I don't think people, when they think of me, immediately think of It Gals anymore. Obviously some people do, which is fine, and like, it is a part of my past, so I'm not trying to hide from it in any way. But I don't really want it to define me, because I just, it's so funny because of how it ended and everything else was so like traumatic, and like, you know, and I truly, I'm not using that word lightly. It was genuinely traumatizing that I had to go to therapy for quite a long time. I feel that like it kind of just muddies the whole waters of it. Like, if we ended things on a more like private note for the fans and stuff like that, which is what I wanted to do, I felt like people still would have had like maybe a bit of a good taste in their mouth about the podcast, and it would be like, it just wouldn't be like dirty. Like, now I feel like people are a bit like, ugh, you know, I feel like it was just like, ugh. So I'm glad that I don't have that reputation anymore. At least I don't think I do anyway. Someone asked me what I think the best year of my life was and why. I think this year will probably be the actual best year of my life, because there's just so much happening. Like, hopefully moving into a new house, buying a house, getting married, having a wedding, all those things. So I think that will be a pretty monumental year. But in general, if I was to look back and be like, okay, you can only choose a year, I would say the year I lived in New York was pretty incredible. Like, I just made so many incredible friends that I still have to this day, and it was quite a like a canon moment for my development as a person, and it led me on the road to where I am now in a weird way. So I would say that that was like, you know, if I didn't do that, I would be very different, I do feel. Lastly, someone asked me, am I still planning a podcast separate to Red Room? So I had planned a podcast with a co-host at the start of this year, and then both of our schedules just got insanely busy, and the co-host is still insanely busy. So it's not that I'm not planning on doing it. I still would love to do that podcast. But the thing is with podcasting, and it's something I know, is that like both people have to be able to dedicate the time, and if you're both not there, you're better off just waiting till you are. Do you know what I mean? And the thing is, the idea is there, so it wouldn't be too much to put it into action. But I wouldn't want anyone to feel under pressure from me, or I wouldn't want to feel under pressure if there was other things going on, or, you know, I wouldn't want to feel like we would have to, for both of us, like cram all the recording into like one weekend. You know, I would want it to be an enjoyable experience for both of us. So I just always think that like if those things are going to happen, they're going to happen. I always have ideas for podcasts. Honestly, I would love another podcast with like a co-host. I would love like a book-based podcast, like a book club podcast. I would love, there's so many different kinds of podcasts I would love to do. It's just a matter of like finding someone you have the chemistry with, and then finding a way for you to come together and make it. And that's it, the same with all creative endeavors. Like the idea for me is never the big thing, it's actually the like getting together and making it happen. And I've got a lot of stuff that I want to finish this year. I've got one really big project that I'm really eager to do, and I just have to get my fucking ass in gear because I've just been lazy about it. So yeah, there's always a podcast possibility out there, and I hope to do one. I really do. It's not that I've bailed, it's not that anyone else has bailed, it's just like sometimes life gets in the way or other commitments get in the way, and I always prefer to like give people their grace, so that, and for people to give me my grace, and then always know that like you can always come back to these things, you know. Okay, that's it for the day. I really need to get my hair cut. like if I come back on this fucking video vlog and my hair isn't cut, you need to slap me, because like I did this with my air wrap, and when it's so long it just flops down and doesn't keep any shape. Okay, anyway, love you.